Alright, back with week 14 of the NFL season. Recapping, started out, we have the Seahawks and the Cardinals yet again. The second matchup for them in 3 weeks. This one was going to be played without Kenneth Walker III, who I believe was dealing with an oblique injury and was slated to miss this game. Off the fucking rip, they said no problem at all. Is next man up, and clearly Zach Charbonnet answered the fucking call. Now, yes, things started off a little slower on the defensive front. They were able to get a touchdown with Michael Wilson from 41 yards out, and then the offense had a solid drive where Charbonnet was getting active in the passing attack a little bit, which was a theme throughout the course of this game. And they drove all the way down to Arizona territory. They got stopped at the goal line, or inside their 2-yard line. Yet again, they had to settle for a field goal. Now, that is something that probably needs to improve, because they're, for at least the past 3 weeks or so, red zone offense has been more glaring. There's probably been some problems in that area over the course of the entire season. But, in terms of, not necessarily seeing all of these games live, I guess that kind of gets lost. But, yes, that definitely needs to improve. The interceptions would rein in, and the defense would begin to pick up where they left off the last time they saw the Cardinals in Seattle, as Ernest Jones IV. Shout out to Ernest Jones IV. He would pick off Kyler Murray on a routine passing play for him, and that would lead to an instant 19-yard touchdown catch by Jackson Smith and Jigba to take a 10-7 lead in the first quarter, before another interception to Kobe Bryant, yet again, came to form. Seattle, with another short field, took advantage, starting off with another Jackson Smith and Jigba 19-yard catch in solid Zach Charbonnet runs that led to him getting a 1-yard touchdown run off of a pseudo sweep. I guess that was the way to figure it out. I don't know, because for whatever reason, it just seems like even though guys like Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker III have the power, they can't seem to gain a yard inside the opponent's 5-yard line. I don't understand that development. Like I said, that's got to improve. It could be an offensive line issue with specific personnel. I really don't know, but yeah, you don't want to keep missing on those opportunities. Second quarter would be pretty standard for both teams, as you would have the Cardinals try to respond with a field goal of their own before both teams settled for punts. And then, this man, boy oh boy. Now, DK Metcalf would get active on the drive, and later on in it, there would be a 3rd and 10, because there was a delay of game on the play following. So, Jonnu Smith tries to throw up a pass as he was under pressure, which I saw on post, and Jackson Smith and Jigba had a catch and run of 24 yards. But when I saw it, it was so close to being married to be incomplete. This man got both of his hands under the ball just barely before it hit the ground, and then had the instincts to pick up extra yardage. The very next play, or 2 plays after, you get Zach Charbonnet bursting through the entire Cardinals defense with a 51-yard touchdown run. I didn't think he was that particularly fast, but this is 2024. And this game was a great one for him. Certainly a great start, if anything. So the offense would jump out to a 14-point deficit, and that is how it would stay by the end of the half. Now, I guess you could say the second half was kind of a total reverse from how Seahawks games have usually went. I mean, they settled for 2 field goals during this stretch of time, and one came very late in the fourth quarter. Still, it wasn't like this close game that had everybody biting their nails and shit in absolute angst for what was to come next. Even with the Cardinals getting a short touchdown to James Conner and a short run by Kyler Murray to push the lead down to 9, there really was no threat here. I mean, even with them getting into field goal range on the drive before the Seahawks effectively put the game to rest, they get down the 4th and 2, and this nigga Chad Ryland, who was playing out of his body all season long, finally decided to show the world exactly who he is and missed a field goal from 40 yards out. So with that, you get the final score of 30-18. The second time they beat them in 3 weeks, and a season sweep on the Cardinals, who have lost to Jonnu Smith 6 times now in his career, and I believe that would make him undefeated against them during his Seahawks tenure specifically. It'd be kind of weird to think that he had never in New York played them a single time. I would find that difficult to believe. But it's true. Gino had a very productive day, I will say. More productive than most of the games have been this season. 233 yards passing, 80% completion, and a single touchdown pass, that being to Jackson Smith and Jigba. Zach Charbonnet had an absolute fucking masterclass in this game. 134 yards on the ground and 2 rushing touchdowns on 6.1 yards a carry and 59 receiving yards. In a game where quite literally the number one running back on the team was just off, and the rushing attack for most of the season had been a little underwhelming. Zach Charbonnet, while I don't necessarily foreshadow anything by saying this, he would lead all rushers in the NFL with yardage this week. In a game where he had to take the mantle of the number one back. Absolutely great work. I can't say much more than that. And they even gave Kenny McIntosh some love too. He would finish with 7 rushes for 38 yards and also got used on a few returns. As not only were they going with him on the special teams side, but they picked up Jalen Darden, former return man. He was most recently with the Browns. So I have reason to believe that they ended up cutting D. Williams. As unfortunate as that sounds, it feels like they cut him as well with Laviska Shenault last week. Am I incredibly surprised by that? I don't think I really can be. It was really just a team win. I mean, you had Jackson Smith and Jigba lead all receivers with 82 receiving yards on 5 catches. And DK Metcalf would only have 4 for 49. I think everybody got a fair share at getting the ball. I mean, you had A.J. Barner get a reception. You had Noah Fant with multiple. Kenny McIntosh got involved. Pharaoh Brown had one of his first catches this season. And even George Hulani from Boise State managed to long a reception, though it was for a negative yard. let's talk about Tyler Lockett. It's nothing negative, but I just find him. They only went to him one time, and it was incomplete. He did not log a single reception in this game, and this has to be one of the first games in his career, if not the very first game in his career, where he has not logged a reception. And it's certainly the only game of the season that he's had this happen. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of like, it's weird to see. And knowing Tyler Lockett, I think that things will certainly come around for him. Maybe it is by design with the fact that you have a guy like Jackson Smith and Jigba on this kind of emergence, that naturally some opportunities at reps will be lost. But I'm not going into that territory with Tyler Lockett, man. That man is still a very great and capable playmaker on the outside. I'm very certain that he will come through at some point. There's no doubt in my mind about that. So I just want to dispel that notion. Defense had a very good overall game. As I mentioned, Kobe Bryant and Ernest Jones IV had a pick in this game. Tyrese Knight also had a very good game with 12 total tackles and 2 pass deflections. They were trying their hardest to target Tariq Woolen and Deborah Witherspoon throughout the whole game. It was not working. Leonard Williams had 2 tackles per loss. Rayshon Jenkins had the game-sealing sack. Though again, with them getting the ball back that late, because let me just save it. Just save it. But yeah, very productive game for the Seahawks. I will say, overall. Maybe it wasn't necessarily complete, but again, they have full control of it. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Now, I want to get to the Cardinals. Okay, before I get into the stats. So, they are in desperation mode after missing their field goal, customary, from Chad Ryland. That was obvious. I need explanation as to why Jonathan Gannon managed the end of this game the way that he did. I need answers. This would be the Seahawks field goal drive, but you want to know what this nigga did? After a run play that was for no gain, he called a timeout, his first, with 7 minutes and 12 seconds left on the clock. Then he called his second timeout after another run play that went for no gain at 5 minutes and 42 seconds. By the time we get to a converted first down by Jackson Smith and Jigba, that gets them further into Arizona territory at the 37-yard line, this nigga Jonathan Gannon called his third and final timeout with 5 minutes and 35 seconds to go. They did not get the ball back until there was 1 minute and 56 seconds on the clock. What did Jonathan Gannon think the Cardinals offense was going to do when for most of the game and most of the season, when it came to facing the Seahawks, you had trouble driving down the field and turning red zone opportunities into touchdowns in the first place? What made you think that it would be optimal for you to have your offense go out there and try their hardest against an inspired defense to get down there and make something happen, with enough time left to ensure that you can get the ball again off of a potential onside kick, which they are barely converted in the first place. Given the way how things were going, because again, a few plays there, they did a decent job of stopping the run. But if you're going to call your first time out, like at that point, you're already letting the Seahawks make the decision for you. They will definitely do their best to run down the clock after every single one. And promptly enough, before these other timeouts were called, that's exactly what fucking happened. Then, by the end of the game, you do actually manage to get in Seattle's red zone before Rayshawn Jenkins sacked him at the 23-yard line, Kyler Murray, to end the game. No time to do much of anything there. Like, that was just horrible to, look at. And if only the game was on lock, but instead, these niggas on CBS keep tripping because it was the only 4 p.m. game slated to be on CBS. But since it's in Arizona and they have their obligations to, I guess, kind of commit to that specific region of the country, they decided to cut on goddamn Major League Fishing. Like, what makes you think that people would choose Major League Fishing over... That may be the case for some people. Like, no disrespect to them. And those guys were actually finding some pretty good catches, if I do say so myself. But what the fuck? Like, cut on the game. Cut on the game. You're going to cut on any and everything else. Over foot, like... But you know what? And I'll allude to it later. Because the next game that I'm talking about involves a team that will be playing them later, and I'll be able to watch it. It's going to be a fun one. But let's wrap this up here, all right? Now, Kyler Murray, Seahawks have his number. 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions in this game for him. 259 yards and 65.8% completion. Sure, a lot of those were likely short throws. James Conner had a touchdown reception and 122 total yards on 22 touches. Outside of him, I mean, let's just say they relied on James Conner a lot. I mean, Trey Benson didn't get a lot of burn, and Kyler Murray for, a multitude of reasons. Maybe he didn't just didn't feel like it. Or maybe the quarterback spot was that good. But he only had 3 rushes for 16 yards in this one. Trey McBride led all receivers for this team with 7 receptions for 70 yards. Michael Wilson had the aforementioned touchdown catch. And Marvin Harrison Jr. had 4 receptions for 49 yards on 8 targets. All in all, productive win that further cements the Seahawks' claim to the division title. There's still work to be done. The job's not finished. But they're on that path. And they assert themselves firmly in the driver's seat by getting a win against a division rival. Moving on to the Thursday night football game between the Lions and the Packers. And man, it was a good one. It started out about how one really expected at this point. They would get both David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs involved at will. Because that's how this thing goes. Alright. This man, I'm not too familiar with who number 33 on Green Bay was, but he trying his best to act all tough by hitting hard and shit. I don't know. But look it, man. By the end of that drive, that shit didn't matter. Man, David Montgomery got in for an easy vulture touchdown and had a goofy little celebration to put the Lions up 7-0. That would remain the same throughout the rest of the first quarter as both defenses would do a good job of getting pressure on both quarterbacks. Jordan Love was getting quite literally sacrificed out there. All of the Lions' D linemen were just absolutely getting on this nigga. He had no breathing room whatsoever, and as a result, the first quarter would end on very anticlimactic note, but things would pick up soon. And especially with Kirk Herbstreit, traversing and speaking some lingo. Now, he ain't even know. I didn't even think he knew that kind of lingo. But he spoke it. And hey, few plays after that situation, Christian Watson was trying to extend the play after the catch, and David Long Jr., of all people, I didn't think he was with the Lions to this point, but granted, with their injuries at so many positions on their front seven, they do need reinforcements somehow. So they settled for David Long Jr. He would actually make a play and punch the ball out as Christian Watson was trying to fucking leap over a defender. So Carlton Davis III would punch it out, and David Long Jr. would pick it up, being a productive player for them. Too bad for the Lions that their offense would only settle for a field goal after it. This man, Josh Jacobs, is simply a man amongst children. He's simply a man amongst children. They just bet him right out of the gates. Instant first down conversion and instant plays in Lions territory. Like, it's really simple. And he just kept it going, even having Jordan Love trying to get active in the rushing attack, which he picked up a 14-yard scramble on. There were some potential miscues, as Jordan Love would throw an interception to Carlton Davis, but Terrion Arnold was interfering with the pass on. Therefore, they called it a no play, granted the Packers an automatic first down and half the distance to the goal. What Josh Jacobs provides, he will finish. He will start, and he will finish. He got a easy vulture touchdown that surpassed the one that Montgomery had from 1 yard out. Simple. But with him packing quite the punch, ain't too much you can do about that. Now the Lions will get the ball back with 5 minutes and 35 seconds left. And a little before that, it would be noted that coming into the game, they had the same 31-8 record that the Chiefs did since Week 8 of 2022. The best overall record in football in the regular season and over the course of these past few years. They would put that on great display. David Montgomery with a run straight from Isaiah Pacheco's book on hard running. A dot to Jameson Williams ensued. We pick up 20 yards off of that. And then Jared Goff would start to get elusive and get out of the pocket somehow. He was inspired by the likes of his running back core. He was inspired by Sam Laporta. He wanted a piece of that pie. He wouldn't get it. David Montgomery would try to punch it in, but they overcame the Vultures' forces. They weren't going to let him get in so easily. On 4th and 2, and keep in mind that this became a theme of the night very quickly as well, given the fact that, the Lions' defense, again, they are, for all intents and purposes, just completely just overmatched in a sense. They are completely depleted. They felt that having their offense out there consistently could put even more pressure on the Lions, on the Packers. They were absolutely right. On this one, on 4th and goal from the 2-yard line, they would have Jahmyr Gibbs run a Texas route out of the backfield as he would catch the touchdown, put them up 17-7. That would take them into the half. The Packers would respond pretty quickly, but you say so myself. You would have Brian Branch hit his Alabama mate, Josh Jacobs, in the backfield for 1-yard loss. Then Christian Watson would get a 59-yard catch. To that point, he had been averaging, according to the broadcast team, over 40 yards catch on his last 7 catches, including that one. He would try to go at him again because, obviously you have Christian Watson making a play like that, getting you deep into the red zone. You want him to try to finish the drive. Back-to-back incompletions on his part. But Tucker Kraft had him. And he would get a 12-yard touchdown catch. However, they would show Jordan Love kind of just throwing a fuck it ball over there. He was spotting him. He was looking at him dead in his face. And then he tried to, as he threw it, just look away in a swaggy manner or something like that. Also, one of the blockers on that play absolutely fucked up Amir Robertson, bro. Second week in a row that this man gets exposed. He got put on his ass, man. Like, real talk. He got put on his ass. At least Jordan Love ended the drive off that way, though, because on one of the incompletions, you can't necessarily blame it on Christian Watson. This nigga had the slowest wind-up I done ever seen in my life. It looked like something straight out of a video game. It was so stiff, and it just went straight out of bounds. It was ugly as hell. But he capped it off. He capped it off. Like, fuck it, man. I guess, bro. Hey, so the Lions would get the ball back shortly thereafter. They would take a pretty brutal hit on a rushing attempt, especially when you add in the fact that they were penalized. On a 2nd and 14 following an Amon-Ra St. Brown catch, Jared Goff would throw a pretty simple and questionable pick to Keyshawn Nixon that would get the Packers right into Lion territory instantly. So you can imagine how this drive would end. Josh Jacobs is going to finish what he starts. He ran through damn near every single defender as he cut back and got a 6-yard touchdown run to give the Packers a 4-point lead. The Lions would get an instant chance to redeem their wrongs. Eric Stokes, for whatever reason, decided to lay a big hit on Jahmyr Gibbs too. Hey, it was a physical game, though. Everybody wanted to get a little tough like that, I guess. You gotta have it too, especially with the way that both of these teams have been playing this season. Both of them still fighting for division supremacy, so you gotta show somebody up, I suppose. Laporta would drop a very rough pass before Jameson Williams would get them close enough for Jared Goff to convert a fourth down. They would yet again find themselves within a few plays or so after Jahmyr Gibbs' 20-yard run gets them in Green Bay's red zone. They kind of stall out for a little bit. They are faced with another fourth down and goal from the 3-yard line. And Tim Patrick scores a touchdown. They would grant Tim Patrick his first touchdown since 2021, a man that has consistently been injured and just overall trying to find his footing over the past few years. So that's definitely a respectable case. They would show multiple graphics, one earlier in the game, as it pertained to David Montgomery, mentioned how he became the third Lion with 12 or more rushing touchdowns in 2 straight seasons, since both Barry Sanders and Billy Sims did it in their Lions careers. A pretty good list to be on in terms of Lions running backs. As far as the general NFC North goes, they would find themselves a part of the second such time in NFL history where any division in the league had 3 teams with, a record of at least 6 games above 500 through the first 13 weeks of the season. Not accounting for this game. There was still ball to be played. And the Lions, to their credit, a 3-point lead was great. But it had also helped that they went 3 of 3 on fourth downs to this very point. They were sticking by their word. They were not going to relent on that at all. They tried the Packers, when they got the ball back, they tried a flea flicker, and it absolutely failed. They would eventually end up settling for a punt. Now, Josh Jacobs, they probably should have utilized him more on this drive, but there would also be a little milestone for him. He would become the third Packers running back with 8 rushing touchdowns in 4 games. The other 2 were Jim Taylor and Aaron Jones Sr. At this point in time, the Lions had a chance to kind of take a little more control of this ball game, and you would have them kind of underwhelm on this subsequent possession. They tried to get David Montgomery going, but he would only pick up 4 total yards. And then they would get Tim Patrick the ball again for just a 5-yard catch, bringing them just short of the first down line. On 4th and 1 in their own territory with 1:31 left to go in the third, they could have punted, but Dan Campbell at this point, you get just close enough, he's going to find a way to try and make something happen. Something about him will just not let him settle for field goals or settle for punts. He doesn't know what that shit is. Anyway, they, for whatever reason, maybe it was fine to run a play, but you had to be smart about what you call. They pitched it out on a sweep to Jahmyr Gibbs, and he lost a yard, giving the Packers easy field position, and just confusing me overall. Like, I'd rather you just run it up the gut, or just run it up the outside, straight up. Don't kind of give the defense that kind of leverage to position themselves out there and have to go on that angle of pursuit to get you. Because they probably will. The way that their formation is set. Like, you're giving them the advantage by trying to get them to go to the outside. And it surely did not work. The Packers would subsequently score a touchdown on that drive. Now, not before this man, Tucker Kraft. Let's talk about Tucker Kraft. You see, he would get a 21-yard catch after a Josh Jacobs run, and he would get popped. He would get fucking popped. I mean, bruh. Look, man. Hey. Yo. This man got fucking truck sticked by both Terrion Arnold first, and then Zach Campbell came in and put him on his ass. Alright? Now, he could have just sat down there, take in all the pain, and just completely writhe in that position. No. You want to know what this man does? Almost instantly. He flips back up on his feet and takes that shit. Taunts the opponent because he got the first down. Handle it like a motherfucking man, my nigga. True athlete right there. True athlete. You're not going to find a lot of people doing this in the modern day and age. It's that simple. This Sims person would catch the ball shortly thereafter. Don't know why they wouldn't feed Tucker Kraft immediately after that. That's besides the point. Josh Jacobs get a touchdown run to bring that specific milestone into form. The Lions would get the ball back. You know, Tim Patrick would get involved a lot. And they would even get a pass to him on the very first play. Quay Walker was trying to completely alter the trajectory of the ball. He got his hand nearly all the way up there, but it ended up being just out of reach for him. And it got where it needed to be. Then we get Montgomery involved a little more, and then let's talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown, because prior to this, he was relatively quiet. The receptions that he did have, they didn't go for much yardage. And Kirk Herbstreit made mention of it with what he was doing for the rest of the night. Like, he was along the lines of saying, oh, I know that Amon-Ra St. Brown isn't necessarily getting all the targets in the world right now, but you know what? He's not crying. He's not begging Jared Goff to give him the ball. He's out there blocking his ass off. And I mean, credit to him, like, like, everybody was talking about language, bruh, shut up. It may have caught some people off guard, but to be honest, he was absolutely right. He was getting down and dirty out there in the rushing attack. And you need more people willing to do that sometimes when you aren't necessarily getting the ball. You still have to play for those guys that are getting it. Help them, propel them to success in some manner. Because, yes, you may feel a way deep down that it isn't you leading the charge, right? But ultimately, any help that you can get from your death pieces will likely benefit the team that you're playing on and help you beat the opponent you're facing. So you may as well just accept that. And honestly, in some cases, the game will come to you. It's not always designed to just, abuse giving one person the ball or something like that. There are a lot of intricacies that go into these game plans. And since for these defenses that are scouting these offenses and things like that, watching film, trying to read up on their opponent. But when we get into the game, though it may seem like predictable things can happen, there's always room for unpredictable circumstances to take hold and throw a wrench in the plans of these individuals. You cannot try to spend your time on the football field trying to account for it all the time. There's almost no way to. Sometimes it's about going with the flow. Foreshadowing on multiple fronts, because on the very next drive after this was mentioned for the Lions, Amon-Ra St. Brown would get a clutch first down conversion. Sam Laporta would take notes as well after getting a very great catch. And to have Amon-Ra St. Brown get another 10-yard run this time before, on 3rd and goal, from the 1-yard line, they would throw a play-action pass with Jared Goff getting it to Tim Patrick again for his second touchdown of the night. It would have to have been his first multi-touchdown game in quite some time if he already caught his first touchdown pass since 2021. Do with that what you will. The Packers were inspired to try and do something, anything, at this point. Carlton Davis III was not going to let that happen. He was sick and tired of Josh Jacobs running all over him. He wanted to put him on the ground, and put him on the ground he did. He suplexed his ass. You had Christian Watson get a 29-yard gain on the play after that. And it was really a good one all around. You had Jordan Love taking all of the fucking pressure on that one. He got completely lit up by Zach Campbell. But I'll tell you what, he hung in there. And Christian Watson, he had to bobble the ball a little bit first, but he maintained good control of it and did what he needed to do. Alright? They get into Lions territory, and then Dontavion Wicks, in the course of a few plays, says, you know what? I'm going to be inspired by this. And he gets a 26-yard catch with some pretty good moves in the open field on multiple defenders before being taken down by Kirby Joseph. They would go to him again and get inside Detroit's 10-yard line. They would initially score a touchdown with Josh Jacobs in the passing game before Christian Watson sold their drive with OPI. On 3rd and 16, this man, Jordan Love, for whatever reason, tried to run the ball again. Ezekiel Turner, who apparently was a former Hawks player who was on the practice squad, he got picked up by them and he made play absolutely just slamming them to the ground. Man, that's unfortunate. They would settle for a field goal. The Lions would try to close it out in some fashion. Everything was in their favor, and they instantly went to work. Instantly. David Montgomery and Amon-Ra St. Brown would push them as close as they needed to be in order to strike. But another 4th down after a good stop on David Montgomery forced them to make a decision. They're on Green Bay's 21-yard line with this. And for Dan Campbell, you're either kicking the field goal with 43 seconds left and giving Jordan Love the ball back, or you're closing this thing out. What do you think he did? It's not hard to figure it out, man. He went for it again for the 5th time of the night. And there was almost disaster as Jared Goff would fall to the ground. Luckily, he was not touched by the defense. He merely tripped over his own lineman. He still was able to get the handoff he needed. And David Montgomery will pick up 7 yards, sealing the deal. Literally, like Dan Campbell is just, the epitome of the people's coach. That's really all I can say at this point, right? This man is just so fucking gutsy. You gotta respect it. There are moments where he will certainly need to recognize NFC Championship game last year. It's not always wisest to go for everything. It's not always optimal to go for it. But he converts them at a high clip. And you honestly want to have a coach like that be able to trust their players so much that they count on them 5 different times in a ball game to go out, pick up a first down, and extend the drive or close the game out. They went 4 or 5 on 4th down on Thursday night. And those decisions single-handedly won them a game, propelling their win streak to 11, granting them the longest such winning streak in their franchise history, as Jake Bates sent the Packers home and won it 34-31 for them. As far as the numbers go, Jordan Love had an albeit decent game, 60% completion, 206 yards, and a touchdown, especially after a slow first half, I might add. Josh Jacobs had 3 touchdowns on the ground. Again, 3.7 yards per carry isn't the best, but, bro, he's getting touchdowns, man. He's producing week in, week out for this team. And, I mean, all I know is that, yeah. How are the Raiders doing right now? Foreshadowing. Christian Watson would get 4 receptions for 114 yards. And Dontavion Wicks would have 4 for 49 himself. Tucker Kraft would also get 41 receiving yards and the aforementioned touchdown. Keyshawn Nixon would not only have a pick, but 2 passes defended and 10 tackles total. So that's a respectable overall game for him. As far as the Lions go, 283 yards for Jared Goff, 78% completion, and 3 touchdown passes, only 1 interception. David Montgomery with a touchdown on the ground. 2 of those touchdowns went to Tim Patrick, as I mentioned. But Jameson Williams will lead all receivers with 5 receptions and 80 yards. They had, I believe it was Valentine. I'm not too familiar with the first name, but number 24 on the Packers, this Valentine guy, had the assignment on Jameson Williams, and he absolutely did not hold his own. This man, Jameson Williams, may have refined his route running a little bit because he was torching him all night long. He couldn't hang with him. And in a better situation, Williams could have had even more yards. Amon St. Brown, for his credit, did get 43 receiving yards by the end of it on 5 catches. A very good win for the Lions, as with some help, they did clinch a playoff spot and the division. Moving on to the Browns versus Steelers match. This game was, I guess I would have to say it kind of started exactly where things left off in week 12, to be completely honest. Exactly how things left off. You had slow-paced first couple of possessions for both teams. An overthrow by Russell Wilson intended for Mike Williams would force him to put on the first drive. But the defensive battle would take complete and total form. Najee Harris on this next drive in very short territory due to Calvin Austin III being such a decent return man. And also Corey Bojorquez not necessarily having the strongest of punting legs. Najee Harris would pick up 20 yards. And he was able to kind of have a patient running style. He saw a hole develop and he actually decided to run through it that time. Never thought I would see that a day in my life. But it is 2024. Chris Boswell banging his field goal, as they would also detail a graphic shortly thereafter stating that through 12 games, he had the second most made field goals in a single season in NFL history. There's honestly no denying it though. Even without that graphic, you can tell that Chris Boswell has been incredibly important to this team this season. If you couldn't already tell that from every single year he's been there as one of the more reliable kickers in the NFL, and honestly, if not for a person like Justin Tucker, would probably serve as a top 2 kicker in his own respect. But I guess people aren't ready to have that conversation. Nonetheless, the Browns would pick things up, starting out with Jameis Winston after a few Nick Chubb and Jerome Ford runs, hitting up Elijah Moore for a 20-yard gain. Then, on 3rd and 9 from Pittsburgh's 35, the chemistry between Jameis Winston and Jerry Jeudy would show itself again. He would get a 35-yard touchdown catch to put them up 7-3. And Justin Hopkins would also convert the PAT to help with that. Let's just say that doesn't stand. Man, oh my gosh. Russell Wilson was literally in danger of being called for intentional grounding because his offensive line just could not contain Myles Garrett enough. Despite them trying their hardest efforts throughout this point to double team, triple team, he would still break through and kind of try to take him down. And seriously, it was that ridiculous. There would be more punting on both sides. Meanwhile, somebody had to step in and make a play. Somebody, man. They would have to force themselves to say, enough of this. You got Dante Jackson and Alex Highsmith doing work, but somebody needs to force a turnover. Somebody. And granted, shades of that would happen as on an earlier drive for the Browns, you would have Ethan Pochich get lit the fuck up by none other than a Landon Roberts. He came crashing straight in there. And that was just it from there. Keanu Benton would take things a step further and complete the mission on the very next Browns drive as he would catch the easiest pick of his life from Jameis Winston. Like, if you see the play, he quite literally threw it straight to him. Granted, Keanu Benton appears to be a very tall, large human being. So I don't know what made Jameis Winston think that he could get it over him. But again, this is the Dr. Jekyll alter ego of Mr. Jameis Winston. And he will do whatever he wants, and you aren't going to stop him. He loves interceptions. He loves seeing other people happy, I guess. I don't know. But they just tend to make people mad. And things of that nature. Anyways, man. Gosh. Najee Harris would get in the end zone and actually use his size for once in an effective way. The Steelers, to this point on the season, they gained 75 or had an advantage of scoring 75 more points off of turnovers than their opponents, which is definitely one of the highest marks in the league. Browns would go 3-and-out again, and this would become Jaylen Warren's time to shine. He may legitimately be a Brown killer. I don't know what it is. Something about the Browns just invokes very tense emotions in Jaylen Warren, where he just wants to eviscerate every single person out there. But he is, in a more serious note, he's literally a beast. And I don't know what makes the Steelers just consistently go away from utilizing him. When he gets enough reps, he is quite literally more productive than Najee Harris on so many fronts. Maybe it's not a case where he's the lead back, but like, damn, he should be getting some more love over there. You know what I'm saying? Like, seriously, dude. Chris Boswell would kick the field goal to put them up 13-7. Browns would get the ball back, try to get some points on the board to counter. Cameron Hayward was not up for that. So on 3rd and 12, he would manage Jameis Winston to find Jordan Akins somehow. I really don't. Like, Jordan Akins? Like, why? I really don't know how he's still in the league. You gotta take it up with somebody else. I really don't know. I don't know what to make of that. I really don't. Let's just tie it in together because things will make a lot of sense. Okay. You would have a sequence of time as well where the Browns would open up the third quarter trying to make something happen. And they would get some help with Joey Porter Jr. becoming the defensive epitome, defensive representation of George Pickens. Yeah. They would get into Browns territory after Pierre had a very strong, after Jerome Ford had a very strong return. They were given that favorable position. And they could not mount a touchdown drive out of it, which is embarrassing in and of itself. But you do have a reliable kicker out there, right? Right? Wrong. Because I had to tie these two together. Because on the drive prior to the end of the first half, and the fucking drive to open up the second half, when they were down by 6 points, you want to know what this man Dustin Hopkins did? He missed both field goals on back-to-back possessions that, if they were made, could have tied up the ball game at that very point, and maybe not have forced the Browns to be in a position where they needed to mount back. Because shortly thereafter, you would get Russell Wilson doing Russell Wilson things, man. Pat Freiermuth, we get a 21-yard pass from him You would have Jalen Warren making his mark yet again before Van Jefferson got in with a 10-yard receiving touchdown. The Browns would subsequently turn the ball over on downs, even with Dante Jackson being out for that specific drive with a concussion. They still held more than their own here, forcing Jerome Ford on a 4th and 1 to lose 5 yards on this play. The Steelers would score another fucking touchdown, another one, after Mike Williams made a very productive 22-yard catch, beautiful one, albeit, to get his own against Martin Emerson Jr., who he fouled earlier on. Just wait on it, because Martin Emerson Jr. is still a fucking clown. Still, shit has not stopped. It hasn't. It's crazy, man. Pat Freiermuth would get another touchdown catch where Russell Wilson threw the ball across his body over the middle to him from more than 20 yards out. That was the end of the Steelers scoring from this point. But again, the ball was really in the Browns' court. Like, you want to at least make it seem as though you fought a little bit. And that just, Jerry Jeudy would try his hardest. He would try his absolute hardest. But still, they were forced to punt the ball again. The Steelers' defense would hold up again. Well, it would take them a while to do so, because they had to overcome the deficiencies of their offense first. They would punt the ball again, and Kadarius Toney made a sighting as he tried to return it. He also would just, for whatever reason, throw the ball at Ben Skoronek's back. I guess they were jawing at each other, some shit like that. Like, oh, okay, alright, both of you were mediocre-ass fucking players anyway. I don't know what the hell they could possibly be beefing about, but that's besides the point, man. They would skull down Cleveland and score a touchdown, caught by David Njoku from 15 yards out. Nick Chubb would also put in some very solid production on that drive. They would be in very favorable position as well after the Steelers' offense were bringing up these deficiencies, right? This man, Cordero Patterson, would put the ball on the ground and allow Myles Garrett to recover the fumble at midfield. It was looking like, though there were only 4 minutes and 49 seconds left on the clock at this point, maybe, just maybe, they could have came back. Instead, this man, oh boy, oh man, oh my gosh, bro, look, man. Another late interception in the fourth quarter for Jameis Winston to James Pierre to effectively end the game, or at least their chances of trying to mount a victory here. To make it worse, the graphic that was displayed stated that 6 of 11 of Jameis Winston's turnovers this very season have come in the fourth quarter. Do you know how ridiculous that is? And not to mention that with what he was able to do in the Ravens game in the fourth quarter, he's capable of leading a team to victory in this spot. But why are you, in the same breath, getting so careless with some of these throws that you're wasting valuable possessions and chances at winning these games by doing stupid shit? Like, it just... The duality of this man is wild to explore. Somebody's gonna go down and handle this, I would believe, because it's that crazy. Like, I really don't know. But whatever. Alright. So they would punt the ball away, and there wasn't really a shot that they would do much of anything with it anyways. But again, you want to make it look good for the optics. Things started to look very bad for the optics. This man, Kadarius Toney, would do what he does best and put the ball on the ground. He muffed the goddamn punt. And in instant karma, this man, Ben Skowronek, recovered the goddamn fumble and gave the Steelers all of what they needed to just close out the game. They were going to do it anyway, and they may have very well done it to this point, but let's just add insult to injury, right? Yeah, ridiculous. Absolute embarrassment. As the Steelers would win 27-14, right? 2 picks and 2 touchdowns for Jameis Winston. Like, I know it's a case where you've got to take the good with the bad, but fuck, like, bro, these are costing chances at wins, man. And the Browns were effectively eliminated from playoff contention as well with this loss. So keep that in mind. Nick Chubb would have 48 yards rushing on 11 carries. Jerry Jeudy would lean all receivers on the Browns yet again with 64 receiving yards and the aforementioned touchdown. James Prochet II also had random sightings throughout this game. Don't know what. Just, like, I guess. Like, so many of these AFC North teams just want to take. They just want to take from each other. What made the Browns go out there and believe that because obviously the Ravens are a threat, obviously. You think you benefit from having James Prochet II on your team. I don't know what makes you think that. What makes you think that, man? For the Steelers, Russell Wilson kept on rolling with 158 yards and 2 passing touchdowns. He also had a few rushes on the ground, totaling up to 17 yards. They picked up some productive conversions when they needed it. Najee Harris had 53 yards rushing, and Jaylen Warren had 47. In terms of the receiving game, Pat Freiermuth had 3 receptions for 48 yards and the aforementioned touchdown, while Scotty Miller, of all fucking people, managed to get 38 receiving yards. A really weird game for them, but they did win it. They continued to assert their control of the AFC North as far as this particular week goes. Still relatively undecided, but they look like they're in prime position to take it. Moving on to the Eagles and Panthers, Bryce Young would have another pretty solid game, be wasted by his own teammates. However, it started off a little weird. He would overthrow both Jatavion Sanders and Adam Thielen. To his credit, though, Sanders had a hard time adjusting to where the ball was exactly. It may have overrun his route. So, I may not be in line to totally blame him for that. But on that same possession, you would have C.J. Gardner-Johnson fuck up Xavier Leggett, forcing them to punt the ball. Barkley would enter this game with the 3rd most rushing yards in a single season in Eagles history. And he would start off with, relatively quiet production, seeing as they would try to get Kenneth Gainwell involved a little more, being influenced by Saquon Barkley and all. Wouldn't pan out too well for them. They would, despite his Barkley-esque play, punt the ball. And that was the theme of the first quarter. Josie Jewell later on would force Jalen Hurts in an unfavorable situation of all linebackers, which is just ridiculous. C.J. Gardner-Johnson would also see himself go out of the game with injury, while Adam Thielen would continue to take it way back to his damn prime, starting off this next possession with a 24-yard catch on none other than Cooper DeJean. They would fall very short of converting 3rd and 13 in Philly's 26-yard line, and then have to kick a field goal with Eddie Pinheiro to take them up 3-0. Pretty weird case for them. Second quarter would see the Eagles open up with a touchdown drive of their own as Saquon Barkley would now come into his element. But it would ultimately be Jalen Hurts who finishes up this drive. Because, of course, like, what did you expect? Like, Saquon Barkley had scored the touchdown, but they overturned it and ruled him just short. It's like, okay, go on and stop the tush push then, which is rarely happens, right? Panthers would have a chance to respond, and Adam Thielen would get more chances at converting, along with some contributions from former Seahawk David Moore, adding in a 19-yard catch here to take them inside Philadelphia's 10-yard line. Like, quite literally, while Zach Bond would get in the backfield and tackle Chuba Hubbard for a 3-yard loss. They would ultimately find themselves on 4th and goal from their 3-yard line, where Bryce Young would get it to Tommy Tremble for a touchdown and take them up 10-7. Some momentum would go the Panthers' way as they would stop Philly again before Bryce Young, in an attempt to force something that wasn't there, threw it right into C.J. Gardner-Johnson's hands, completely overthrowing David Moore in the process. So that was very, very unfortunate. And certainly C.J. Gardner-Johnson had a blast with it. Now, could the Eagles respond? They certainly did. Devontae Smith would get a 4-yard touchdown catch to take them up 14-10 at the end of the half. Then Saquon Barkley and Kenneth Gainwell would add in their own contributions. And ultimately on this drive to open up the third quarter, Jake Elliott would miss a field goal somehow, which makes no sense. Usually one of the more accurate kickers in the league. But again, everybody just seems to be struggling right now. It doesn't make any sense, man. Like, quite literally. They would hit Adam Thielen on another 15-yard passing play with him having a sort of wheel route to the flats in the Philly defense, kind of exploiting that again. It worked for them earlier, and it worked for them again to get them deeper and deeper into Philly territory. Ultimately, Chuba Hubbard would punch it in from 1 yard out, and Eddie Pinheiro would miss his PAT. Because, of course, like it is so weird this season. It really is. Saquon Barkley has had a consistent stretch of games, and basically this entire season, he heats up in the second half, and they got runs of 11 and 15 yards out of him on this drive to open it up. Grant Calcaterra would ultimately get the game-sealing touchdown here, but not before a lot, and I mean a lot, of controversy. Like, Thielen just kept on. He kept on making plays, man. Right on Cooper DeJean, too, in the grittiest display you've ever seen in your life. Like, just going back and forth at it with each other, man. You just have to respect that about the game. Gardner-Johnson would be taken out of the game again with another injury. Ultimately, they would try to go for it on 4th down here, and Xavier Leggett, in a pass intended for him, was incomplete. Now, the Eagles' offense would sputter out again with a contribution by Michael Jackson Sr. forcing Jalen Hurts to get desperate on this 3rd and long. They didn't pick up the requisite yardage and subsequently punted, giving the Panthers a chance to maybe put the game away if they played their cards right. And Bryce Young did everything he needed to do to rise to the occasion. Seriously. He just made plays over and over and over again. Scrambling out of the pocket on 3rd and 11, and on his own 2-yard line, he hit Xavier Leggett for a 31-yard gain. Boom. Then you get him picking up another first down with a little short pass to Devin Tompkins, of all people, using his legs, picking up 4th down with another Adam Thielen catch for 13 yards. They're in prime position on Philly's 32-yard line, despite all of the odds against them. They've moved the ball down here. And on 2nd and 4, with 52 seconds left, they have a great, and I mean a great play dialed up for Xavier Leggett. He's wide open on the outside, and Bryce Young throws a perfect, I mean absolutely perfect pass, and he drops it on the ground. Doesn't maintain control of the ball in any sense of the imagination. Absolute waste. Ultimately, on 4th and 9, they throw an incomplete pass, but either way, with an illegal blindside block, it wouldn't have mattered. The game would end from there, with the Eagles taking a victory formation. Unfortunate development for the Panthers again. But again, yes, while the numbers aren't there, trust me, again, a 191-yard, 1 touchdown, 1 interception game for Bryce Young doesn't look like the greatest, but he is, for these past 3 weeks, he has put them in prime position to win ball games. And for one reason or another, they haven't come through. It was Patrick Mahomes exploiting the defense. Then it was Chuba Hubbard fumbling the ball away. Now it's Xavier Leggett dropping the pass. Like, something's got to come through for them at some point. I don't know. Chuba Hubbard in this game would have 92 rushing yards and a touchdown, only on 3.5 yards a carry. Not necessarily the best. And yeah, again, what I can say is that the Panthers do still tend to struggle with separation. That is a problem. It is glaring, too, that Thielen led all receivers in this game with 9 receptions for 102 yards. No other Panthers receiver had more than 40. And yet still, when push came to shove, Bryce Young was on par to win. Just was not the case here. Jalen Hurts would only have 108 passing yards and 2 touchdown passes. Saquon Barkley would have 124 rushing yards on 20 carries and 6.2 yards a carry, which gave him the franchise record for the most rushing yards by an Eagles running back in a single season. He broke it over the course of the game here, in an effort that saw the Eagles rush for 209 yards combined. A.J. Brown led all Eagles receivers with only 43 yards receiving, and Devontae Smith had 37 yards and a touchdown, while Calcaterra had 16 yards and a touchdown. A solid win for the Eagles. They are also asserting themselves in better position to clinch this coming week. We have a few games as it pertains to bonus coverage, though I again do need to preface that their 9-game winning streak is the longest in Eagles franchise history, or tied for the longest in the Eagles franchise history. But after that game, there were a ton of bonus coverage games coming in, so I figured I may as well account for these now. You will start out with the Saints and Giants, and to be honest, you can render every other development in this game irrelevant. I mean, you knew that a team was going to miss a field goal at some point, which the Saints ended up doing in the first quarter on a drive that saw them start past midfield and in Giants territory, because that's the clown show that they are. While Derek Carr would lead them on a touchdown drive, ended off by a Kendre Miller touchdown run, they didn't do largely anything outside of that, and even had another field goal blocked. Their defense would keep the Giants on their toes as Drew Lock was playing absolutely porous for most of the game. His stat line at a particular point was just god-awful. I was clamoring for this man to step it up. It just wouldn't happen. Nothing gave. Juwan Johnson would open up the game to a 14-3 lead for the Saints before chaos ensued. They would score a touchdown, the Giants, prior to them putting on the bonus coverage as Tyrone Tracy Jr. would get in after a Malik Neighbors 22-yard catch. And he would get the 2-point conversion to make it a 3-point deficit. This man, Derek Carr, the second after they get on here, they show that the Saints have the ball, right? And that Derek Carr is trying to pick up yardage for whatever fucking reason. This man was compelled to try and scramble for the first down and dive out of bounds. Now, he's done this in the past, and it's failed most of the time in some fashion. Like, for example, this game against the Cowboys back in, I want to say, 2017, he tried a similar thing and fumbled the ball out of the end zone to lose that specific match. History has shown that this has not favored him, but he decided to do it anyway. And unfortunately for him, do you want to know what happened? He not only potentially broke his hand, but also suffered a concussion that would take him out of the game. And now, as far as we know to this point, there's no real timetable for his return. They seriously fear that he broke some bone in his non-throwing hand. I guess to an extent, you being motivated to try and get the first down, fine. But where does the jumping come in? Why do you even feel the need to do that? You are that old and you have never been a mobile quarterback. Why are you trying to activate some element of verticality right now? That is just unnecessary. Now, I hope that he would recover reasonably well, but it's just like, why put yourself in that position? The Saints have a lost season anyways. It's like, dude, they definitely do not have a shot without you right now. There's no true backup plan in place. After all that, the Giants would get the ball back. And there would be a few gaffes on Drew Lock's part before he would hit Darius Slayton for a 20-yard gain on an absolute dime. Suddenly, they just stalled out. They stalled out completely. Just undisciplined and playing with a lack of urgency as well. A delayed game, followed up by an incomplete pass, and then followed up with another incomplete pass after a 6-yard gain. On 4th and 9 from their own 38, Demario Davis would get the better of Drew Lock, intercepting him on what I thought was going to be a pick six, because I had seen that it appeared as though they did not blow the play dead and he had the free rein to just run off with it completely. But they blew the play dead. So all the Saints had to do was close the game out. With Jank Heiner in at the helm, no, Kayvon Thibodeau would absolutely just slam him, get the better of him on a sack before they just cop out with a short Alvin Kamara run, giving the Giants the ball back with a good amount of time left. They would have 1:21 to work with, and they would start off pretty hot. Tyrone Tracy would get active before 3 incomplete passes led them to 4th and 10 on their own 40-yard line, where Drew Lock activated his ability to lock the fuck in and picked up 25 yards on the ground. Then hit Malik Neighbors for a 23-yard gain. At that point, it felt like the game could go to overtime, in succession with the next bonus coverage game that I'm going to talk about. They were in prime position to do so, but of course, these are the Giants we're talking about. At some point in the game, a succession of terrible things are bound to happen to the team. And that's exactly what fucking happened. As Graham Gano's kick would be blocked by Brian Breesy, who, shout out to Brian Breesy, because this man, bro, just watch the play. He had shades of Kam Chancellor in him on Sunday. This man got completely over the offensive lineman, and he was slipping a little bit, but he got in the air just enough to get his long wingspan to affect the kick. And the game was over. Saints would lose 14-11. One of the weirder scores you will ever see. Is it a scoregami? It might be a scoregami. But I do believe that this score has already occurred before. Nonetheless, you don't necessarily want to find yourself in this position. It's not necessarily a favorable one. The Saints are completely finished, but they just cement their dominance, assert some level of dominance over the Giants, I suppose. Yeah, the Giants are just a complete, I can't even say mid-off, really. Just two trash teams gone at it in the weirdest way. Derek Carr had 219 yards passing with a touchdown and an interception. Alvin Kamara only had 44 yards on the ground on 2.6 yards a carry and 35 yards receiving. Marquez Valdez-Scantling had 51 receiving yards, while Juwan Johnson had 50 in the aforementioned touchdown. 227 yards for Drew Lock, but on 21 of 49 fucking passing, and the aforementioned interception. He did lead all rushers, though, with 59 rushing yards. That should tell you a whole lot about what's going on down there. Malik Neighbors had 5 receptions for 79 yards on 10 targets. Just absolutely atrocious work, man. I don't know anymore with this team, man. I don't know. But they had to have anticipated that things were going to be this way after they made some of the moves they did. I can't hold you. They have kind of put themselves in this position. So, feel sorry for them? I think not. By moving Saquon Barkley, by committing all that money to Daniel Jones in the first place, then waiving him with no true backup plan in place, yeah, you're definitely going to be struggling. This is not totally surprising. Moving on to the Dolphins and Jets. As far as this one goes, before the point of which they allowed the game to be shown on CBS following the Steelers-Browns game, it was competitive for most of the way. I had noted that Aaron Rodgers was on pace to get his first 300-yard game since 2021, but the teams are going back and forth. Devontae Adams ended up getting a touchdown along the way. Davon Achane was getting highly involved. Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill were both having very productive games as Tyreek Hill was searching for his first 100-yard performance since the very first week of the season. Isaiah Davis, too, weirdly enough, would continue to get involved for some reason. And I do note, I was thinking initially that Braylon Allen was hurt, but no, I see that Braylon Allen got a few reps throughout this game. I guess they're trying to have a sort of running back by committee system in New York too. But can they really afford to do that given the situation they're in? I don't know. Either way, the defenses would tighten up a little bit, especially on the Jets' end, as they would extend their lead to 23-15 going into the fourth quarter. They would be in position to collapse. Tyreek Hill would get a touchdown, and Jalen Waddle would get the subsequent 2-point conversion to tie the ball game. A couple of punts were traded before the Jets got on the board with a field goal, and here we get ourselves in a spot where they show the game from here. Tyreek Hill would instantly pick up a 14-yard gain, bringing him over 100 yards for the first time since that game against Jacksonville. Jalen Waddle would step in, get them a little closer before a shot to Tyreek Hill was incomplete. They were still well off in Jets territory at their own 34-yard line to get at least a field goal on the board to tie the ball game. Subsequently, Jason Sanders would get a 52-yard field goal attempt to go and bring them into overtime. And again, it seemed like it was completely over for the Jets. Nope. You had to get that smoke from Miami, man. They were not playing with y'all. They were at home and they were motivated to win. And surely enough, that is how overtime began. Now, Jonnu Smith had absolutely no involvement in this game prior to overtime, but that would change. He got a conversion of 20 yards for a first down. That pushed him to midfield. Then another conversion off of a similar screenplay that went for 14 yards and got them on the Jets' 36-yard line. A couple contributions from Devon Achane and Tyreek Hill later, they would face 2nd and 7 on the Jets' 10-yard line before Tua Tagovailoa threw an absolute dart to Jonnu Smith from 10 yards out for the game-winning touchdown in overtime. Absolute clown show on the defensive front by the Jets. Like, there is no way. There's just effectively no shot that you lose that game. Like, this is literally the peak of Aaron Rodgers' performance on this team. And it still goes to waste in a season that has just absolutely fell flat of so many Jets fans' expectations. Aaron Rodgers would have 339 yards passing and a touchdown. Their rushing attack could have done a little more here, but I guess you were missing Breece Hall. So I won't necessarily hold that against them. Besides, their passing attack was really great throughout the game. I mean, 114 yards and 7 catches for Garrett Wilson, 109 yards, the aforementioned touchdown pass, and 9 receptions for Devontae Adams. You had the game in the bag. And your defense helped you in no fashion. Tua Tagovailoa was able to get 331 yards on them and 2 touchdown passes. With albeit a worse rushing attack. I mean, Devon Achane, as good as he can be in some cases, whether it's the line or him as a young player, the yards per carry just aren't there. I mean, he only mustered 24 yards on 14 carries. That's very inefficient. Now, he did still get a touchdown, but, like, holy shit, that is a winnable ball game if you're holding their rushing attack in check like that. You know they're going to be one-dimensional and pass the football. But that still wasn't enough, I guess. 99 yards and 9 catches for Jalen Waddle. 115 yards and the aforementioned touchdown on 10 catches for Tyreek Hill. And 3 catches for 44 yards and the aforementioned touchdown, all in overtime for Jonnu Smith to bring it home for Miami. They keep themselves firm in the playoff hunt while the Jets are there. If they were not already done, they're done. They're finito. There is no. It's over. It's over. It's over, man. A 3-10 record in the AFC. Yeah, you're finished. There is absolutely no chance of coming back. Bills Rams next on the docket here. Puka would get active instantly in a game that could probably be considered his best of the season. Yes, there's kind of a limited sample size seeing as he was hurt, but instantly, a 12-yard catch for him, a 17-yard catch for him, with some beautiful extensions to go out and get the goddamn ball before he would have a situation where he was being utilized in the rushing attack too. And they literally couldn't stop him because this is how bad the Bills' defense was, right? They literally ran the same jet sweep play to the left side of the field twice. And he managed to get decent yardage on both of those runs, pushing them to a 1st and goal on the 3-yard line. Like at that point, if you see it work the first time, and you know that you have to account for that in some way, why aren't you? There's no way, if you're the defensive coordinator, to gauge necessarily whether or not they're going to run the play again that fast. But you have to be prepared for it at some point. So you can't literally give them the open space to hit you in that same manner again, instantly, and not do anything about it. Subsequently, Kyren Williams punched it in from 3 yards out on that drive, like the vulture that he is. The Bills' offense would respond, and, this is the thing. They had to respond. And for a while, they didn't after this. Josh Allen touchdown run, though, would allow them to, at least keep the ball game competitive for a good little while. After contributions from Mac Hollins, Ty Johnson, and Khalil Shakir, all important players in the long run. For now, though, the Rams would get the ball back, and Cooper Kupp would get his own go at the Bills' defense. They would settle for a field goal in the long run, though, which could be considered a waste. They were on their 3-yard line and could not punch it in. Their special teams would help them out on the next drive. After an Amari Cooper catch, Josh Allen would throw 3 incomplete passes in a row, and they would be forced to punt the football, but not before a gunner on the Rams special teams unit blocked the kick, allowing backup tight end Hunter Long, and a special teamer as well, to return it for a touchdown that opened up the lead by 10. Bills had no choice, but they had no choice but to respond. Absolutely none. And on a pseudo screen route, they would get Ty Johnson in the open field, and he would just absolutely skate past everybody for a 41-yard touchdown. The play he had earlier, I thought, was going to be it for him, because it seems like since he's been a part of the Bills, he's good for at least one, not multiple. But I was proven wrong somehow. Could the Rams do anything with that? Yes, they would. Puka would continue to assert his dominance all over the Bills' defense. Kyren Williams would get involved in Puka again. Getting in here is Tron Johnson would just continue to be exposed by both of these guys. Pretty crazy when you think about it. In short, Puka would actually get a rushing touchdown on this possession, giving them a 10-point lead. And the Bills would start a stretch of drives where they punted. They punted on this drive before the end of the first half and at the start of the second half. Now with that, the Rams knew that this next possession could be pivotal in their attempts to pull off a heavy upset victory. And with a few dimes to none other than Puka and Cooper Kupp per 37-yard gain, they would get deep into Buffalo territory, where it would be Kyren Williams the rest of the way for these 14 yards, getting in on a 7-yard touchdown run. just a complete and total vulture. It makes no sense how people don't necessarily see this to be the case. Khalil Shakir would be held to no gain before Amari Cooper picked up 26 yards. They would find themselves in a position on 3rd and 8 following Josh Allen's 17-yard run on a scramble attempt on their own territory, where they would get Khalil Shakir through the seams perfectly. A perfect pass to him preceded by a monster run after the catch, breaking off tackles and just exposing the defense entirely on a 51-yard touchdown for him. The Rams were not finished with the Bills defense just yet. More Puka, more Cooper Kupp with an impressive catch off of his kneecap in the end zone for a 17-yard touchdown, bringing the lead to 38-21. By that point, it was thought to be over because, seriously, the defense was not doing anything. And I noted this as well. They released a graphic stating that the Bills' defense runs zone coverage 78% of the time, which is one of the highest marks in the league. Matthew Stafford had been killing them all day when they were aligned in zone coverage. And it continued for most of the game because they quite literally refused to get out of it for the most part. Now, there were some drives in this fourth quarter that forced the Rams' hand and forced the hand of Matthew Stafford to make a few errant decisions. However, as a veteran in the game for so long who's seen pretty much everything, they really didn't anticipate that he would do the best he could to carve up these zones. That's where I get confused. You thought it was going to work against him like that and that you were going to fool him with something that he had never seen before? He's seen these kinds of zone coverage before. There's no way they were seriously thinking of that. Anyways, they would keep trying. Josh Allen would call them back in with a rushing touchdown, followed by a punt by the Rams. And then he throws once more. That was preceded by a beautiful catch by Khalil Shakir on that rushing touchdown drive, capped off by him. He was literally being hawked down by Cameron Curl, who dishes out some of the hardest hits in the league, despite him being a rotational piece, not necessarily a starting caliber safety. Khalil Shakir managed to hang on to the ball knowing he was going to get popped. And he was just short of a touchdown. Again, Josh Allen punching it in, bringing the lead down to 10. Rams punt it. Josh Allen getting a 30-yard run here, then getting some completions to Curtis Samuel and James Cook before diming it up to Mac Hollins for a 21-yard touchdown. This nigga Mac Hollins is insane, man. This guy walks into the Rams stadium, walks into SoFi, actually walks over SoFi, makes his marks his fucking territory with his barefooted ass. Just walking in literally the same spot near the end zone. Surely enough, I believe that's exactly where he caught the fucking touchdown pass. It's just absolutely disgusting. How dare you? Anyways, the Rams would have a chance to, at the very least, keep the defense on their toes and allow their own defense to cool down enough so that they could get a stop. However, given the fact that Josh Allen was dominating the ball game, they decided to run off as much time as they could. By the time we get down to 3 minutes and 52 seconds left on 4th and 5, they decided to go for it instead of kicking the field goal, and Tre'Davious Atwell picked it up on an 11-yard catch. Kyren Williams would get involved a little bit before Puka Nacua would get the game-sealing touchdown on a beautiful, and I mean beautiful, play design. Obviously, no respect for the fucking Rams over here, right? But I'm not going to hold you. They ran a good play. It was kind of a screen route, and they had Puka Nacua run a sort of like decoy route and then come back in. This man, Cooper Kupp, is designed to block on that play, and he lays the absolute best block possible on Taron Johnson, I believe. I think it was Deontay Ingram, actually. Yeah, he actually, it was so perfect. And Rob Havenstein also got out there to make a play. He had no chance of catching him, and surely enough, boom. That is exactly how things would go down from there. So now you're in a situation on the Bills side where you have to at least try to respond. And again, like most of the game, they do just that. With help from Amari Cooper getting down the field, Josh Allen ultimately gets another rushing touchdown in the game. The Bills also on this drive, though, would waste a crucial timeout, their first of the game, because they just wanted Josh Allen to run it up the gut again. And granted, it had been working all game, but it's like, dude, the goal on that possession is to score as quick as possible without wasting any of your timeouts at all. Because by this point, you score with a minute left, and you have only 2 timeouts. You know what the game plan is for the Rams from this point. They're going to try their best to run it out, and you give them the opportunity to do exactly that. They would be out of timeouts after their 3rd and 6. And on 4th and 7, the Rams would intentionally take a delay game and then reset, call their timeout to punt the ball and the game away. So once more, you have Josh Allen in another situation in a somewhat, I guess I can't say that this is a high-stakes ball game. You have literally the best advantage over this team, if I do say so myself, coming into this game. The odds were definitely favoring you. By no means was it anything like this. But I will say that you had a chance to win. You had the greatest of chances to win. A game that sees your quarterback become the first player all time with 3 passing and 3 rushing touchdowns in a game. It also just breeds a horrible example for your defense. Guys like Jamarcus Ingram and all the like becoming involved in a game that was the 2nd all time with 5 combined passing and 5 combined rushing touchdowns by teams with no turnovers as well since a 1965 competition between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Denver Broncos. So we're going all the way back into AFL territory with this. That's just absolutely not helpful at all to Josh Allen. And this is, again, he combined not as well for 6 total touchdowns, but also 424 total yards. The completion percentage could have been better, but at that point, he effectively did what he needed to do to win the ball game. On any other day, this certainly would have happened. I guess they just were not expecting the Rams to sneak up on them like this, and they probably should have been a little bit prepared. This man, Matthew Stafford, threw for 320 yards, 2 touchdown passes, 76.7% completion. Also, Kyren Williams only had 3 yards of damn carry, but 2 rushing touchdowns and 87 rushing yards. Puka Nacua had an all-around game, with 178 total yards, a receiving touchdown, and a rushing touchdown, with Cooper Kupp also getting 92 receiving yards on 5 catches and a touchdown. Rams win it 44-42. Absolute shootout. Probably a Game of the Year candidate because, to the Bills' credit, they did make it close, even though it looked like they were completely out of it because of their inept defense. But, so be it. Moving on to the Chiefs and Chargers match. Things started out well for the Chiefs, I suppose. They would get on the board early as Isaiah Pacheco would get utilized before Travis Kelce and Xavier Worthy would get involved. The whole gang. Too bad that Tui Pelotu and Khalil Mack wanted to spoil it, and they combined for a sack on him. That forced them to kick a 47-yard field goal with Matthew Wright of all kickers. But granted, again, Harrison Butker is still in IR. You waived Spencer Schrader, so you've got to make something happen, I guess. I don't know. They would get, in a situation where Justin Herbert was feeling the pressure regardless of how legal it was. They would stop him on a 3rd and 16, but Nick Bolton would commit unnecessary roughness as he converted an and-one to Quentin Johnston anyway, of all people. Kimani Vidal of Troy would actually get a few reps early on in this game. Granted, you kind of have to do this to see what you have, because J.K. Dobbins was out, and, Gus Edwards is not necessarily a feature back that gets the ball outside of the opponent's red zone. He's not that versatile. He's quite slow. Yeah, just not optimal. So you want to see what you have with it all. Makes sense. You didn't waste or get him in the draft for no reason, right? Right? Anyways, multiple punts would ensue as, again, both defenses would pressure the quarterbacks. And it was especially, hindering Justin Herbert's ability to set a milestone, because I believe that they stated he would have been the quickest to 20K yards since Manning. Right? That's a huge accomplishment. The Chiefs were determined to make sure that this man would not fucking do that shit to him. Chris Jones would also have the highest sack total against any single opponent he's faced in the league against the Chargers, which makes sense, at 11.5 through his first 17 matches against them. But naturally, as a Kansas City Chief, you ain't gonna rock with them niggas, so it makes sense. That's not too surprising. They would be in a spot to completely open the game wide with a Josh Palmer damn near touchdown, let alone a 50-plus yard catch. But ultimately, though he burned Brian Cook, it meant nothing. He completely overthrew him, then managed to get clamped up by Trent McDuffie before the Chiefs moved it up to 6-0 after a Juju Smith-Schuster 26-yard catch pushed them further into the Chargers territory, where they eventually stalled out. More punts by the punt god and J.K. Scott. You feel me? Both of them are very good punters. The Chiefs were finally motivated to do something more than just settle for a field goal, and Xavier Worthy would get the action started with a total of 14 yards on the first couple plays of this possession. Travis Kelce would get the instant connection, obviously. Noah Gray would get involved, and Samaje Perine would pick up the first down to force first and goal in on the 9-yard line before DeAndre Hopkins punched it in by simply just backing up into the end zone for the easy touchdown. And they would go into half up 13-0. The Chargers, knowing that the Chiefs were going to play this slow, were inspired, though for a little bit, just maybe, they were scared because Justin Herbert did go down with injury in the first half, prompting Taylor Heinicke to step in for just a little bit of time. And yeah, he did not do as well as they thought, so they decided to bring Justin Herbert back in the game. Instantly, he would lead the touchdown drive to open up the half, and Gus Edwards would punch it in from 3 yards out. Tell me where you've heard that before. The Chiefs would punt, with Matt LaFleur logging another 50 bomb in this aspect. This random tight end on the Chargers was continuously getting involved throughout the course in this game. And he would get the Chargers down to the Chiefs' 11-yard line after a 24-yard catch by him. Gus Edwards would try to vulture his way in before Quentin Johnston managed to catch a contested touchdown from 4 yards out. Let me tell you something. It's just, the inconsistency is ridiculous. Like, yes, he is a 50-50 ball catcher, usually, with inconsistent hands. But how is it that you catch some of the most contested plays out there? Not to mention, earlier in a game, in this very game, he catches one over the middle and gets absolutely popped, but holds on to the ball. You have no problem with holding on to that, but you can't catch some of the most basic passes known to man. Very good tell of how you truly are as a wide receiver. But ultimately, they would get on the board with him, and the Chiefs would then open up the fourth quarter with another 50-yard field goal by Matthew Wright, held by Matthew Oruwariye. The Matrix, you know what I'm saying? They would get Justin Reid to do the thing multiple times. He said he would be willing to do kickoffs, but they were against it because, they wanted to have as many bodies back there as possible. But again, he kicked off 65 yards for, them on this play to open up the third quarter. And then, on their field goal drive to respond to the Chiefs, he got a 68-yard kick. But you talking about, hey, we're not going to let Justin Reid kick. Not only did they lie, but they got proven wrong a little bit. I mean, yes, you need the bodies back there, but one, that from having this man step in for a game in 2022 and kick a field goal for you and make it, that he's got a boot. A safety kicking 68 yards, and not only that, on this very same play, he tackled Darius Davis at the 24-yard line. So he was quite effective in that regard. And especially when Harrison Butker comes back, maybe you should explore that. Because you're going to want to conserve Harrison Butker, who has literally come through time and again for you over the past few years. Knowing that he's coming back from injury, you're going to want to conserve him for the playoffs because you will certainly need him for that. Don't necessarily make him waste all those reps on being a kickoff specialist when you have one who's literally willing to take the job in Justin Reid. Just explore the idea. It'll save him some time and energy to make the kicks you want him to make in clutch time. Right? Especially in this case, because shortly after that, the Chiefs would get the ball back with 4 minutes and 35 seconds left, trying to close out the game. And they were in danger of losing before Xavier Worthy completely exposed Tar Heap Still, making a great adjustment of coming back to the ball and picking up 14 yards to get them in the Chargers' territory. Isaiah Pacheco would get a 2-yard run before Patrick Mahomes did what Patrick Mahomes does all the time. You give this man any ounce of room to run with a rushing lane in the pocket, he's going to find it, he's going to exploit it, he's going to pick up a first down. This is in clutch time. It's a guarantee damn near most of the fucking time. The Mahomes shit would keep getting activated as he would throw across his body and with a low pass to Travis Kelce for a 9-yard gain that would ultimately force the Chargers in desperation mode. And they had to just sit there and accept whatever was going to happen. So we get down to a single second left. They're on the Chargers' 13-yard line. This should be an easy chip shot field goal by Matthew Wright, right? In a way that only the Chiefs could win a football game this season, Matthew Wright literally doinked it off of the left upright. On impact, it turned back inside and went through the back of the net for the game-winning field goal. The Chiefs win it by a score of 19-17. This could quite possibly be a cinematic experience in any other context. The Disney storybook victory for the Chiefs and just for any other team that just is in their way. You just cannot escape something crazy. You can't escape the crazy. You can't. It's going to happen. There's literally nothing you can do about it sometimes. It's accepting it no matter what the emotions may be, and boom, just like that. That's how it goes around here. The Chiefs, by margin of victory, are the worst 12-1 team all time. That being said, they've won the games. You can't deny that. You can't deny it. You can hate it all you want to, but you just, like, the record's the record. We can only, as far as Chiefs fans go, I guess you would have to actually hope that they find a way to turn things up on a whole nother notch come playoff time. We know that they can win playoff games, clearly. We know they're made for the playoffs, but, like, damn, the way that y'all have been performing this season, y'all are, like, barely cruising. I can't even call it cruising. Y'all are surviving. Y'all are merely surviving right now. And some of these teams are not even really good that you're having these close matchups with. You should be blowing them out of the water if you're this dominant team, right, in the eyes of some people. But hey, though some people may look at dominance in a different way, and when you have a quarterback who, prior to this game, in 51 tries, he won 25 out of 51 fourth quarter comeback attempts. It was the highest percentage all time. And with this win here, it increased to 50%. In an even 26 wins and 26 losses in situations where he was trailing entering in the fourth quarter. Like, that's in itself can be a sign of domination. When you are, no matter what you're doing, in every other minute of the ball game, when it comes down to the last two or sometimes even one or sometimes even a few seconds, you recognize that you have to step up, you answer the call, and you get the win by any means necessary. That means something. And the Chiefs are ringing true to that right now. can't deny that. You can't deny it. Moving on to Bengals Cowboys. It's a beautiful day on this Tuesday, man. It really looked like the Bengals could make this out to be way worse for the Cowboys than it actually was. I mean, credit to their defense. Yes, they had multiple gaffes by allowing Ja'Marr Chase to expose every single person on that fucking squad. You had Ja'Marr Chase routing up Deron Bland over the course of the night. He started out his action by routing up Trayvon Diggs. Everybody was just getting exposed. Jordan Lewis couldn't hang with him. Donovan Wilson couldn't hang with him. So who the hell was, right? Even then, on that first possession, they didn't do anything. The Bengals, they punted the ball away, and they, to the Cowboys' credit, managed to be aggressive. I thought that their 4th and 1 attempt on Bengals' 11-yard line was going to absolutely fail, but CeeDee Lamb did catch it. They went up 7-0, with Mike McCarthy being gutsy. That's a rarity, if I do say so myself. The Bengals would be responding, though. They would absolutely respond. Jace Brown would get involved completely. Ja'Marr Chase, again, Donovan Wilson just getting fucking stiff-armed to oblivion out here before. Oh, man. Marvion Obershone would also just get completely spun out of his socks, man. But that's besides the point. They get down the field with more chase action between Ja'Marr and Brown, and Ja'Marr Chase would ultimately get in with a 5-yard out route on Deron Bland. You would think that the Cowboys would maintain some element of positive production, but too bad for them. No two good things can happen at the same time for them, or in succession of one another. They would drive down into Cincinnati territory again, but they would stall out, and ultimately Cooper Rush would throw a terrible pass into very contested coverage. Cameron Taylor-Britt would tip up the ball before Jonnu Smith got his mitts on it. And got a easy interception to derail their chances of scoring in the red zone, which would also be a theme for the Cowboys throughout this game, even though things were close. The Bengals would subsequently turn it over on downs with the help of DeMarvion Obershone, getting in the backfield, clamping down on Chase Brown, PPR guy, not allowing him to put up any more damn points for a fantasy owner right there, right? Spirit of the game. It's absolute spirit of the fucking game. Cowboys would get a field goal out of that. You don't want to keep settling for field goals. You're on Cincinnati's 17-yard line after a few solid contributions by Rico Dowdle, who would just become a focal point for them somehow. I really don't know. I don't know how this happened. You can't really ask me what happened here. I mean, not to mention, too, that Andre Yoshivas would end up getting a 23-yard catch to place the Bengals further in Dallas territory. Mike Gesicki would even get involved. But ultimately, Chase Brown would get in the end zone on a beautiful catch and run out of the backfield. They initially marked him short and said that he stepped out. And he was in the Salvation Army bucket, confused as hell. Like, what the fuck? No, I scored. He did score upon further review. Cade York would kick in the extra point. Granted, again, they seriously could have gotten anybody else out of free agency from the kicker pool. But they managed to go with him. A man who they know from his time with the Browns absolutely sucked ass. I guess his game against the Cowboys couldn't have been a better time to activate him, really, because his girlfriend, who happened to be a Cowboys cheerleader, was obviously in attendance because she was forced to be there by Jerry Jones. They kept on referring to it throughout the game and even showing, or cutting the camera to her, and it's like, okay, like, this is a very conflicting situation, do you realize? Do you know what happens when one of them loses? Because one of them is ultimately going to lose this ball game. It's not going to be a fun situation like you're making this thing out to be. You know what I'm saying? Like, whoa. Like, come on, man. All right. Iron does, in fact, sharpen iron. You know what I'm saying? You just have to... You have to understand. You have to get it, man. It's really that simple. And this would come to form for them in just a bit, but not before Bengals field goal by Kate York would open up the lead to 17-10 before they took it into the half. Now the Cowboys would open up the third quarter with a drive of their own, in which Rico Dowdle would manage to get a 27-yard rush out of this. And Brandon Cooks would get in the end zone as he was attacking Josh Newton, a rookie, on his specific route. We all knew how that was going to end up, right? We all knew that. As savvy as this man Brandon Cooks is, and they noted how unorthodox his career is too. He's been everywhere, but he's produced at nearly every stop, even though it was looking rough for him in Los Angeles with the Rams. It was, you know what I'm saying? But look, man, you know what they say. We got the Ohio State boys getting active, man. Malik Hooker and Joe Burrow, for a short period of time, were teammates at Ohio State when Joe Burrow was still there, and he would gift him a chance at glory by throwing an interception to him. And they would be on their own 17-yard line afterwards. But you love to see that contribution. You love to see it, man. There's almost nothing better sometimes. You just want to make sure that, hey, your team gets the win regardless. The Cowboys would take a lead to open up the fourth quarter scoring after taking up, all the time left in the third quarter. They would even make mention prior to his kick that every other announcer that saw a Brandon Aubrey field goal managed to see a made one, whereas Joe Buck made him miss one. Some weird shit like that. He was 4 or 5 there, and then it ended up being 5 and 6 afterwards, and 33 of 33 for all other commentators. I don't really know what that stat line was supposed to do for people, but 'tis the ESPN stat line, and the allure of the ESPN stat line. You're gonna see it. You may question it, but it's there. You have to account for it in some way. But how does this truly affect Brandon Aubrey's legacy exactly? How? What do we really get out of seeing that be the case? I don't know. I really don't. Chase Brown would continue to expose DeMarvion Overshown, and Jamar Chase would also continue to expose Deron Bland before Mike Gesicki and Micah Parsons would combine for a very, very playoff role. Micah Parsons would light the hell up out of Joe Burrow, but he hung in there, managed to complete the pass to Mike Gesicki as he got down to Dallas's 18-yard line and inside their red zone. They would settle for Field goal as a pass to T. Higgins. He tried to one-hand it, but I guess he just couldn't get up high enough, and it fell incomplete. Cowboys would settle for a punt. And ultimately, this would be the theme for a good little while. You have to credit the Cowboys defense with this because, yes, they were struggling to get down the field and convert drives, but their defense was holding the Bengals offense in check. A Bengals offense that is nearly tops in passing yardage, that is in the higher echelon when it comes to points per game. They're having an underwhelming night to this point. You have to credit them with that. The pressure was getting to Joe Burrow as much as it was getting Cooper Rush. They were matching completely, way beyond just a score on the scoreboard. Everything was seemingly coming together, even with Trey Hendrickson even trying to fucking kill Cooper Rush. As undisciplined as the Bengals' offensive line was, though, Cowboys still had a fighting shot to reign victorious. And it was looking exactly like that. We get into a situation where their line is so terrible that they ended up having a 4th and 27 to deal with. They had no choice but to punt. They're on their own 29-yard line, and things got even better for them. And this is where the Cowboys make their mark. You always just have to have a little bit of patience when it comes to the ways that this team can fuck shit up. All right? Because Nick Vigil, who is a special teamer for them at this point, and he, ironically enough, played for the Bengals. Former Bengal, and now special teams gunner for the Cowboys, blocks the punt. It netted only 14 yards. All you have to do is let it fall to the ground, let the Bengals get their hands on it, and just let the play blow dead. You would have favorable field position. You don't need to go through all the struggle of trying to have Cooper Rush go out and win you a ball game. He can literally serve as a game manager. And in that situation, just hand it off to Rico Donnell, who again, surprisingly, but factually, was balling out all night long for you. And all you had to do, just give him the ball. It was set in stone. The game plan and the writing was on the wall. But Amani Oruwariye had other plans. The former Lions cornerback was on the Cowboys practice squad, and he would be elevated for this game as a gunner. Well, actually, no, he was on IR, they stated. Correct that. But either way, he decides to alter the trajectory of the ball and puts his fucking mitts on the goddamn ball while it's still fucking live. Instantly, multiple Bengals players jump on the ball and recover it. Anderson gets over, and Jung Meta, I believe. I may be butchering that, but nonetheless, credit him for making the wise decision and getting right on it, which the Cowboy didn't have to fucking do, which Oruwariye did not have to fucking do. 3 plays later, after Chase Brown picked up a first down, Ja'Marr Chase would get a 40-yard receiving touchdown in which he completely made Deron Bland kind of pirouette for a second. He skated right past him. He felt just a touch of that speed. He couldn't take it. He fell right down to the ground. Ja'Marr Chase was out of there easily, and Kate York secured the 7-point lead. The Cowboys would turn the ball over on downs shortly thereafter, and the game would end. ridiculousness. Like, the Cowboys, they put everything on the line, if we can really say that. Like, there was literally a drive earlier. Like, they were digging very deeply in the goddamn duffel bag, trying their hardest to pull out gimmick after gimmick all night long. On a play earlier in the game, they had CeeDee Lamb kind of run the ball on a pitch pass for a 43-yard gain to open up kind of cap off their first quarter drive that went into the second quarter, lead them closer to it. You had a situation where Cavante Turpin got a rushing attempt in which this man had lined up in the backfield at fucking quarterback. And then they tried to activate him out of the backfield as well. That pass went incomplete, but they were literally pulling out all the stops. And in some cases they failed, but in some cases they worked tremendously, putting them in favorable positions to win the ball game. But at every turn, the Cowboys are exactly who we think they are. All those missed red zone opportunities certainly came back to bite them. Did not help that they could not convert their third downs at all. And again, controlling the clock is important as well, which they failed to do. But ultimately, it comes down to Amani Oruwariye screw up. You just have to get out of the way, and the game is yours. Despite all of that, you still were set totally. There's no reason why you need to do anything other than just fucking move. I guarantee you that there will be something detailing that he was cut from the squad. Because, yes, he was on IR, but I don't necessarily think he was a player who they expected to be a starting caliber player. But again, they're all in and shit down there in Dallas, according to what Jerry Jones's ass will fucking tell you. Like, okay, we totally believe you with the stuff that you're pulling. But anyways, Joe Burrow would have 369 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception on 75% completion from the field. Chase Brown would have 123 total yards and the aforementioned touchdown reception. Jamar Chase. In Monday night games, he had only 3 receiving touchdowns in his 3 games on Monday Night Football, and averaged a good amount of yards and catches. On this night, he had 14 receptions, 177 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns for his first multi-TD performance on Monday Night Football. Added in a 14-yard rush as well. Andre Yoshivas had 41 receiving yards, while Mike Gesicki had 24. T. Higgins was very quiet with only 23 yards. And that certainly hurt some guys. I know. When it comes to the Cowboys, Cooper Rush had only 183 yards and 2 touchdown passes with an interception. Yeah, aforementioned interception. Completing just 51.6% of his passes. Rico Dowdle would have back-to-back 100-yard performances. 18 rushes for 31 yards, averaging 7.3 yards a carry. Like, literally, if you just avoid being a dumbass, he could put the game away by himself for you, taking all the pressure off of your quarterback and allowing him to lead a composed drive to routine form of victory. CeeDee Lamb would also have 93 yards receiving and the aforementioned touchdown, while leading all receivers with 6 catches on the Cowboys. No other Cowboys receiver had more than 33 yards receiving. Ferguson would have 32. made things kind of easy for the Bengals defense down the stretch if you are going to go to that one target. But again, the run was keeping them honest. There was just no excuse for this. Like, quite simple. No excuse. Alright, I am going to move on into the other action here. Let's move on to Falcons-Vikings, shall we? For whatever reason, despite all of Kirk Cousins' bullshit and low-stakes fucking ball game, yes, damn, Kirk is just your fucking former team facing off against you. It's not that fucking bad that you just continue to revert to the most inept bullshit possible, man. There's no way. Still, despite all of that, they managed to tie the ball game up at 21 apiece at the end of the third quarter with a Bijan Robinson touchdown and 2-point conversion. But if this fourth quarter in this entire game displayed anything, it's that the Falcons simply don't have a fucking defense. I know. Are you surprised that they're struggling on defense against the top units on offense in the league? Not incredibly shocking, but still absurd, especially when you manage to string together a good few possessions in the, over the course of the game. You force them into missing field goals. You force some punts. They weren't just going down and getting touchdowns like this all the damn time. But I will say that it is glaring when you can have an individual in Justin Jefferson get a 52-yard touchdown catch like this. But not just any 52-yard touchdown catch. Because I did see the particular play in post. D. Alford had the assignment on him deep, and he completely misread the assignment. I can't even call it a misread. You're running in a completely different direction from Justin Jefferson. Sam Darnold didn't even throw the most accurate football, and to his credit, he didn't fucking have to. He was so wide open. Anybody can go in there and make that pass. Anybody with a little bit of training. You're not just gonna go ahead and be able to magically throw a 52-yard bomb down the field on the first try. It does take work. I'm not gonna go that far, but come on. No NFL caliber quarterback is missing that. Not even the worst of the worst. And D. Alford looked like an absolute clown on that fucking play. So I certainly expect that he would get a talking to here. And after that, something quick, it just opened the floodgates completely. Touchdown drive to open up the fourth quarter by Jordan Addison. A fumble was recovered by C.J. Ham, of all people, after Ray McLeod III fumbled the ball. Then they followed that up with another touchdown score by Jordan Addison. Once more, a pick by Byron Murphy Jr., and then another touchdown drive for the Vikings, capped off with an Aaron Jones Sr. 15-yard run. And then the Falcons turned it over on downs. Absolute shit show at that point. 3 possessions in 3 turnovers in the fourth quarter of a previously tied ball game. Yes, the defense should certainly get some blame. Let's not even act like that, okay? Because again, some of those plays that were happening earlier were just incredibly ridiculous. But can we really expect the defense to hold their own when you are having to guard somebody from 32 yards out, and when you're having to guard somebody from, literally, you're not, it's just crazy. All these things happen so quickly that your defense getting gashed like this isn't getting enough time to cool down, and then by the time they ultimately, on this final possession, go 93 yards and 7 plays down the field, they're out of it completely. There's nothing that you can really do at that point. All-around implosion for the meme franchise. 344 yards don't mean anything if you're going to throw 2 picks and go without a touchdown pass in your 4th consecutive ball game, Kirk Cousins. You need to do way more than that against the Vikings. And maybe prove to them that those years were worth something, though honestly, everybody knows that they weren't. You didn't win anything at all. The only playoff game you had in Minnesota, you lost to You lost to Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins. The only playoff game that you had in Minnesota, you lost to Daniel Jones. Think about that shit. Stings. Stings for every single Vikings fan out there. And you proved them absolutely right by playing how you played. They made the right decision by letting you go. That was affirmed effectively with this performance. Jan Robinson had 92 yards rushing and a touchdown, while Tyler Allgeier added 63 rushing yards on the ground and a touchdown of his own. Darnell Mooney had 142 receiving yards on 6 catches. Ray McCloud had 8 receptions for 98 yards, and Drake London had 70 receiving yards on 5 catches. Kyle Pitts did not get the ball. He only got a 14-yard catch. Like, damn. Just porous, man. Sam Darnold had 347 yards on the other hand, passing, 78.6% completion, and 5 touchdowns. Almost as many touchdowns as incompletions with 6. Aaron Jones Sr. had 73 yards rushing in the aforementioned touchdown run. But that isn't really the focus here. Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson became the first pair of Vikings teammates in franchise history to both record 125 or more receiving yards and both record more than 2 touchdowns in a single ball game. Jordan Addison had 133 yards, 3 touchdown catches on it, 8 catches overall, while Justin Jefferson had 7 catches, 132 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That certainly vaulted them to victory, especially late, and they needed every bit of it. Though I will say that their defense at least woke the hell up and decided to force Kirk Cousins into these vulnerable situations. And also Ray McCloud by getting the fumble on the kickoff. So they did step it up when they needed to as well. Unlike some other teams, I guess. We move on to the Raiders and the Buccaneers. Yeah. Very contested for some reason. I don't know why this was a 14-10 ball game going a little deeper into the 4th quarter. I do question that a lot. And I mean, Baker Mayfield did look a little iffy out there. I don't know. I mean, 2 picks, one to a player in K'Lavon Chaisson that had to literally pull all the stops to get it to himself in the first place. Just completely ridiculous work. Of course, even with all of these respectable plays, it meant nothing. It meant nothing. They would get in a situation where Jack Jones was also able to intercept Baker Mayfield, but they did nothing with that momentum. Like literally, on the drive that they had after K'Lavon Chaisson got this interception, they fumbled on the first fucking play. Now, they would respond after a Baker Mayfield fumble on this occasion, after they got a touchdown run by Aiden O'Connell for some reason. But that just wasn't a consistent enough to last for some reason. They literally just did not know how to operate. And later on in the game, it would go from bad to worse because Aiden O'Connell would get injured yet again in this game right here and be taken out. That was not after he got intercepted by Tyke Smith. Ultimately, the Raiders continue to slide. Just continue. Their 9-game winning streak is just setting more milestones for their franchise history in the most negative of ways. And by the end of it, Jalen McMillan, of all people, from Washington, no disrespect to him, but he had his second touchdown catch of the day to open the scoring up to 28-13, which would be the final score here. Mike Evans still did damage, but, I don't know. Bucky Irving would also be taken out of the game dealing with an injury here. Baker Mayfield, again, the 2 interceptions, but 3 touchdown passes and 295 yards passing. Rachaad White had 90 rushing yards somehow and a touchdown. Sean Tucker had 47 rushing yards on 3 carries. Cade Otton led all receivers in yards with 70, while Mike Evans had 69. But again, Jalen McMillan had 59 receiving yards and the aforementioned 2 touchdown catches on his part. With Rachaad White also being able to sneak in one somehow. For the Raiders, they would give Desmond Ridder some burn because they had really no choice. And, a decent stat line for him, but clearly not enough to win you a ball game in this situation. Just 12-18 passing for 101 yards. This McCormick person has... Sincere McCormick? Huh. Okay. That is interesting. I guess it would be kind of a volume thing because he's quite literally the only running back that they have outside of Amir Abdullah. He has done some decent work. They might need to keep looking his way for now because even when guys like Zamir White come back into the fray, Zamir White was not producing nearly enough to warrant some of the attention he was getting in the rushing attack. Let's just be completely honest here. There was no reason why he should have been incorporated as much as he was. I'm not going to lie. Absolutely atrocious decision-making on their part. Michael Mayer would come out of nowhere and lead the Raiders with 68 receiving yards and 7 catches, though. This makes for a compelling situation. Brock Bowers would get only 49 yards, but as tight ends who were both drafted in the first round in back-to-back drafts, the stupidity. How are you going to utilize both of them in tight end roles while also recognizing that you have a problem at wide receiver that you need to solve? I don't think you can have it as many ways as you're trying to have it. I don't believe so. Come on. That's fucking crazy to look at, man. That's crazy to look at. Jags Titans. Battle of ass, man. Do I really have to get into full detail about this? You can imagine what happened. You know that Matt Jones and Will Levis traded fucking Turnip. You know this. Is that really surprising to people now? I don't know. Will Levis actually had a solid first half performance, and they still only mustered a field goal. That should have told you everything you needed to know about how this game was going to be. Even with Mac Jones playing as shitty as he did, Will Levis had no ability to convert on the multitude of opportunities that they had. They scored no touchdowns. And they led in time of possession. Think about that shit. They converted 8 third down attempts while failing 3 fourth downs, which is bad. They had multiple drives in the red zone that ended in just field goals. And they had the same amount of possessions as the Jaguars, but did nothing at all. If not for a lucky touchdown by Tank Bigsby, though, in the fourth quarter, the Jags probably don't win this game, and they honestly had the similar situation going for them, to be completely honest. Wouldn't it have just been better for this game to end in a tie or something? Like, there's no way that a quarterback who throws just 2 interceptions should be able to win a ball game still, especially in this case. And yet, somehow, this is what goes down. And I don't care if it's a win. Like, that offense is so porous. But I guess you are nearing the end of the season. Maybe the front office, I don't even know how I'm making an excuse for them right now. Maybe they feel as though it just makes more sense for them to finish the season out because it's lost anyway, and then make a decision on both Doug Peterson and Press Taylor. Which, bruh, when the season ends, when Black Monday comes, both of their asses should be gone, logically speaking. And the most logical of owners and GMs would make that decision. But are Khan and bulky logical owners and GMs? Fuck no, they aren't. So we just hold on for just a second. Anything could really happen at this point. Brian Thomas Jr. would have 8 catches for 86 yards, and Travis Etienne, who has honestly, with Tank Bigsby getting 18 rushes, only 55 yards, but 18 rushes, and Travis Etienne only having 4 for 20, it's safe to say that he will probably be used more as a scat back now for one reason or another, whether it's come to injuries or a dip in production, maybe an element of both. Only 99 rushes and 391 yards to this point of the season, along with having some injuries in there. Yeah. Tank Bigsby probably has that role now, to be completely honest. All right, I've just gotta, like, that's just the truth about the situation. Anyways, for the Titans, meanwhile, 168 yards, only 59.4% completion for Will Levis. Tony Pollard had 102 rushing yards, though, to keep the Jaguars' defense honest somewhat. Calvin Ridley only had 59 receiving yards on 7 catches. Absolutely atrocious. No other Titans receiver had more than 20 yards. A true receiver for the team, as Nick Westbrook-Ikhine only had 19 yards. Atrocious work. Moving on to the Bears and 49ers to cap it off. Dominated. They dominated. The 49ers went up 24 to nothing at halftime. They, I guess, wanted to start taking it easy on them a little bit, but by the end of it, it was a 38-13 ball game. They were hurt. They were depleted. They're reeling, but they're still better than the Bears, is what this says to me. Is that I guess you got to take it if you're a 49ers player. You still keep yourself in the playoff hunt somehow, and that's the most important thing here. You also seem to be getting something out of Isaac Guerrero as well. Him stepping in for both Jordan Mason and Christian McCaffrey, who are both on IR right now. Do you know how crazy that is, first of all? Just a horrible situation all around. Like, it's super, super bad over there. But he would tally 128 total yards on 17 total touches in 2 touchdown runs. They would even get Patrick Taylor Jr. in late in the ball game for a rushing touchdown of his own. And anytime you have somebody deploying Patrick Taylor Jr., you know you have problems. Deebo Samuel has continued to struggle, as he would tally just 7 total touches for 35 total yards. George Kittle wouldn't have a day, though. And so would Jaywan Jennings. They would combine for 13 total catches and 241 total yards, with George Kittle accounting for 151 of them, and 2 total touchdowns, with Jaywan Jennings getting both of those. If only things were this consistent from the 49ers, or maybe the Bears are just really that bad. But again, it does make sense. I mean, you recently elevated Thomas Brown to head coaching duty, and though he could help out your offense, you're giving him control of the entire football team. He may not necessarily know what he's doing in that regard, so I kind of understand it. But that's still terrible. Caleb Williams only had 134 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. Tyson Bagent would even get some burn late because it was a blowout. They have no run game. They have no run game. Running backs in DeAndre Swift and Darrington Evans, who I guess is back with the team now, managed to combine for just 17 rushes and 41 fucking yards. They have no threat there. And in a situation where you want to lean on the passing attack, but don't necessarily have the full development of each and every single player involved in it to produce at a high clip, very tough situation to be in overall. And that's what they find themselves in here. Now, for a couple of additional developments, quickly, there would be, a situation with A.J. Brown making, some waves after an interview in which he expressed his discontent with the operations of the Philadelphia offense right now. He alludes to just passing, as he stated, as the issue with the team or a way to get better somehow. And I mean, as far as the comments go, I can see both sides of it. Obviously, to have something like that be said this late is an issue, could be a problem. In the same light, when you are entering the playoffs, you want as many weaknesses as possible reduced and eviscerated completely to be at your absolute strongest when it matters. If passing needs to be improved, why not go all out to improve it before you get in postseason and then you have problems with moving the ball down the field with the passing game to add another element to your offense? Because yes, they were a run-heavy team in 2022, but they had the element of the passing game that allowed them to make it all the way to the Super Bowl and put up very historic numbers overall, though they still lost to the Chiefs that year. Why not add it back? It literally did help you on that Super Bowl run with those elements. That threat of rushing and the threat of getting beaten over the top by either A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith. It is stated, too, that A.J. Brown has not had the greatest of years overall. Could be a dip in production, but he did also miss a substantial amount of time as well, same as Devontae Smith. So naturally, they're going to work to get other receivers involved, and they may have built some decent chemistry there. At the same time, though, with those comments, it's like, yes, that can be said, but also a dip in production might be customary when your running back on the squad is on pace to have a record-setting season in rushing. Like, at most, in a system like that, you can hope for some balance. You can't necessarily have too much of one or the other. So you can't really expect an explosive 300 yards per game passing air attack and have Saquon Barkley doing all of this at the same time. Though in some cases against specific teams, you could have a game where you see yourself doing something like the Lions did to the Jaguars, tallying over 600 total yards in a game, with Saquon Barkley going crazy and the air attack going crazy. Like, sure. And it may look like they're one-dimensional, but Saquon Barkley is literally the true equalizer right now, and he is keeping all of those defenses honest. So it's like I wouldn't necessarily question that, but yes, I can agree. You want the passing game to improve. Again, though, some people are stating that this should be an in-house thing. I mean, 9-game winning streak should speak for itself, they believe. And that's true as well. Like, yes, you don't want to, be playing down the weaker competition like this. But you have won the last 9 ball games. You're on a very hot streak. I guess you're just trying to avoid going through what you went through last year, because that was traumatic. That was traumatic. Not for I can tell you, as a Seahawks fan, I'm good off that, buddy. Let me tell you that. But for every Eagles fan, it was traumatic. You don't want to repeat that again, so I guess, again, calling it out now is probably the wisest thing to do. That'll do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.